Our top stories for tonight: the Senate expresses disagreement through a manifesto on joint voting with the House of Representatives regarding the torture change.
Plebiscite is impossible to push through this year 2024 and 2025 as poll body prepares for national and local election, according to COMELEC chairperson George Garcia.
The Department of Foreign Affairs files a new note verbal against China amid illegal activities in the West Philippine Sea.
Vice President Sara Duterte says she will face the allegation only in Filipino court, while former Senator Antonio Trillanes was tagged as great destabilizer.
And Filipino soldier amongst killed in the war of Israel and Palestine. Good evening, bringing you the latest news for tonight. I am Alvin Pelobello.
And I am Krizza Lopez. This is your TV News Thread.
In a significant move, the Senate of the Philippines, led by Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri, strongly opposes the People's Initiative seeking joint voting with the House of Representatives for the amendment of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, expressing concerns over potential loss of Senate influence and a disruption of the delicate balance within the legislative body. Vanessa Cleophas tells us more.
The Senate of the Philippines has released a manifesto that disagrees with the so-called People's Initiative that aims to unify the vote of the Senate and the House of Representatives in the next move to amend the 1987 Constitution. Led by Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri, all 24 senators have agreed and signed on this manifesto. According to Zubiri, if the joint voting has been approved by both assemblies, the Senate may lose its voice in deciding the amendments of the Constitution due to their small numbers compared to the members of the House with more than 300 congressmen. The senator also emphasized that if joint voting will allow the revision of the 1987 Philippine Constitution, it may destroy the delicate balance among the Senate members. Zubiri said that joint voting by the House is simply eliminating the Senate from the equation to revise the Constitution easily.
This so-called People's Initiative proposes only one change: in acting as a constituent assembly, the Senate and the House shall vote jointly. While it seems simple, my dear friends, the goal is apparent: to make it easier to revise the Constitution by eliminating the Senate from the equation. It is an obvious prelude to further amendments, revisions, or even an overhaul of our entire Constitution. If this PI prospers, further changes to the Constitution can be done with or without the Senate's approval, or worse, even absent all the senators. Should Congress vote jointly in a constituent assembly, the Senate, with its 24 members, cannot cast any meaningful vote against 316 members of the House of Representatives. It should be voted separately. This is the statement that the Senate has made. We are proud of this statement. We stand by our institution, not for our own personal benefit or gain, but for the systems of checks and balances and democracy as a whole. We must stand fast. These attacks on our democratic principles.
In a separate speech by Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, he said that the People's Initiative is becoming an instrument to take advantage of the weakness of Filipinos for the personal benefit of those who wants to gain power.
It is the sacred democratic right of our people to be used as their final weapons against political excesses, opportunism, inaction, oppression, and misgovernance. Ito po ang isa sa purposes ng People's Initiative as envisioned by the framers of the 1987 Constitution.
Meanwhile, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos said that he left the leadership to the Senate in the matter when it comes to the charter change. The People's Initiative is gathering signatures from the rest of people to support the changes of process in amending the Constitution. On the other side, House Speaker Martin Romualdez insisted that the House did not endorse the People's Initiative as well as sanctions direct participation by its member in signature gathering. He also said that the House of Representatives respect the outcomes of the process, affirming the People's Initiative as the purest form of democracy. Vanessa Cleofas for Your TV News.
Meanwhile, due to national and local election and lack of budget, People's Initiative and plebiscite is impossible to happen this year and for year 2025. COMELEC Chairperson George Erwin Garcia says they only have an allocated budget for activities they had presented to Congress. However, if he clarifies, if People's Initiative for Modernization and Reform Action or PIRMA files the formal petition earlier this year, it may be possible that plebiscite may push through. More details on my report. COMELEC Chairman George Erwin Garcia strongly stated that the plebiscite to amend the 1987 Constitution is unlikely to be implemented this year. Several reasons include the preparation for the national election in May 2025 and a lack of budget. Chairman Garcia admitted that the collection of signatures by the People's Initiative for Modernization and Reform Action or FIRMA is an addition to their ongoing work. The People's Initiative is one way to start amending the economic provisions in the 1987 Constitution. Emphasizing a timeline to follow, Garcia noted numerous activities lined up, including voter registration, national and local election preparations, and procurements. He mentioned that if the People's Initiative gains momentum this year, sacrifices in terms of job roles may be inevitable. However, Garcia asserted that the plebiscite is unlikely to proceed if the filing of a formal petition extends to the year's end. PIRMA head Noel Oñate and attorney Evaristo Gana expressed confidence within 2 to 3 months the required 12% signatures from the nationwide voter population and 3% signatures in each district will be collected. Once completed, a formal petition will be submitted to the COMELEC.
Like the COMELEC chairman said, kami po, magpa-file kami as soon as we reach the number, the threshold, the minimum threshold that the law has required of us.
Rather, sinabi na nga po ni ang ating COMELEC chairman na umaabot ng 15% to 20% sa ibang distrito. Kaya kami po ay confident na makukuha namin ang 3% per congressional district at overall 12% nationwide na baka sumobra pa.
Garcia clarified that signature verification would assess whether the signatures are from active or inactive voters. He acknowledged the possibility of fluctuations in signature numbers between districts due to the voters signing in multiple locations. Garcia expressed concern about the COMELEC's lack of manpower for signature verification and simultaneous voter registration reopening, noting that only 60 days are allocated for signature verification. Garcia mentioned that local COMELEC offices with 2 to 3 officers each will facilitate registration for workers unable to visit the main COMELEC office.
Isang election assistant, 1:25 po kami. Kaya lang, meron po kaming lugar, katulad dyan sa Cainta, 400,000 ang botante. 2 lang ang election assistant namin. Dahil nakikiusap nga kami dagdagan yung tao namin sa DBM, wala pa pong action. Ibig sabihin, depende po sa dami nung ipibigay po nila sa bawat local COMELEC namin na i-verify. Mabuti po kung pa isa-1,000 lang yan. Paano po kung sinubmit lampas-lampas sa 3%? o lampas-lampas doon sa bilang. Napakadami po. And again, wala po kaming ganung daming tao para gawin ang dalawang trabaho at the same time. Registration of voters ng February 12 at yung pong verification. Kaya lang, tali po kami sa verification kasi nasa period, may period eh. So yung period po kinakailangan. Otherwise, kakasuhan po ang lahat ng mga COMELEC officials namin na sana naman po at least naririnig ni na Atty. Gana at saka ni Mr. Oñato. Huwag naman nilang kasuhan yung mga local COMELEC namin kung sakasakali. Dahil kawawa na po yung mga, isipin niyo po, sa pagbibilang lang ng mga sinasabit nilang signature forms. Hindi naman po pwedeng page lang ang binibilang kung hindi yung mismong
Despite focusing on registration and procurement, COMELEC faces a challenge as they have no funds allocated for the People's Initiative. Overtime pay for officers verifying signatures becomes a pressing issue for the Commission.
Paulit-ulit ko pong nire-request yung 17.4 sa Senado at saka sa Kongreso. Doon lang po kami nabigyan sa bicameral. So nakatanggap po kami ng 13 billion pesos. Siguro po ang hinala nga nila na yan para sa People's Initiative kasi po nung tinanggalan kami ng budget, iba't ibang items na zero po kami sa voters education and information for 2024. Zero ang budget po namin sa pagpapagawa man lang ng mga local COMELEC. Zero ang budget po namin sa deployment na pinaka-importante. Zero ang budget po namin sa mga gagamitin namin IT equipment.
Garcia assured the public that COMELEC will transparently account for the 13 billion pesos in funds provided by the bicameral. In conclusion, Chairperson Garcia stated that the COMELEC will fulfill its duties despite the current circumstances.
Lang po ito isang prosesong demokratiko. Ang COMELEC handa po sa challenge po na ito. Nalagay po kami sa ganitong klaseng sitwasyon, hindi namin kagustuhan, pero gagawin po namin ang tungkulin.
This is Krizza Lopez for EuroTV News.
The Foreign Affairs Department has filed another note verbal against the government of China amid its latest harassment to the Filipino fisherman in Bajo de Masinloc. The Philippines Defense Department has also issued a strong statement against China over its illegal action in the West Philippine Sea. Here's the details.
The Philippine government has filed a new diplomatic protest against China in relation to its ongoing illegal activities in the West Philippine Sea, following the latest incident of Chinese Coast Guard personnel harassing Filipino fishermen in Bajo de Masinloc that is clearly part of the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. According to the Department of Foreign Affairs, this January 2024 alone, 4 note verbal or diplomatic protests were filed by the Philippines against China. Last year, the DFA has filed nearly 70 diplomatic protests. A video shared by Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson to the West Philippine Sea, Commodore J. Tariela, on social media, showing that Filipino fishermen are enjoying their catches in the West Philippine Sea. This video was taken a few hours before the Chinese Coast Guard personnel has driven away the Filipino fishermen in Bajo de Masinloc. According to Tariela, this reflects how rich the Philippine Reef is and this part of this ocean that China keeps on claiming. Defense Secretary Gilberto Chodoro said that the Philippines should not be blamed for maintaining its stance in the West Philippine Sea. Teodoro also boldly said that it is China that is maintaining trouble and increasing tensions in the West Philippine Sea. The defense chief added that the Philippines remains in compliance with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and insisted that the Philippines did not want any trouble because the only thing that the country wants is peace. Alvin Pelobello for EuroTV News.
Stay tuned for more stories as we will be right back after a few commercials.
Mga kasikat, e-ere na po ang EuroTV News Primetime Balita sa Pinoy Extreme Cable Channel 217. Tuloy-tuloy po ang aming paghahatid balita at impormasyon sa inyong mga tahanan. Maaari nyo rin kaming bisitahin sa aming official website, ang eurotvph.com. Muli ako po si Henry V. Nicolas. Sumasaludo sa bawat Pilipino.
O ang EuroTV Primetime Balita sa Pinoy Extreme Channel 217. Tuloy-tuloy na po ang paghahatid ng mga balita at impormasyon sa inyong mga tahanan. Maaari nyo rin kaming bisitahin sa aming official website, eurotvph.com. Muli ako po si Vanessa Cleofas, sumasaludo sa bawat Pilipino.
After being allegedly involved in the Davao death squad, Vice President Sara Duterte firmly stated she will only face in the Philippine court. Moreover, Senator Bato de la Rosa tagged former Senator Antonio Trillanes as the great destabilizer of peace in the country. Henry Nicolas tells us more.
Vice President Sara Duterte maintained that she will only face the Philippine court in relation to the involvement of her name in the alleged Davao death squad. This came after International Criminal Court or ICC tagged her as the second respondent of the ongoing investigation on the war on drugs campaign of his father, former Rodrigo Duterte. In her recent statement during her tenure as the mayor and vice mayor of Davao City, her name was not linked in the said group. VP Sara also said that she doesn't need a death squad for the things that she can do on her own. She will also not allow the country to be shamed for following foreigners to interfere and meddle in the Philippines, and will not join any process made by the foreigners that will put down the justice system in the country. Meanwhile, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa tagged former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV as a great destabilizer. In a press conference held in the Senate, De La Rosa said that Trillanes is using the ICC issue to destroy the relationship between Marcos and Duterte. De La Rosa also clarified that he is afraid of going to jail because he doesn't want his grandchildren to grow up without him. He also thanked President Marcos for the president's reiteration that the country will not cooperate with the ICC investigation. This is Henry Nicolas for EuroTV News.
The number of Filipinos included in the death toll between the war between the Israel and Palestine increases into 4. The Philippine Embassy in Tel Aviv has confirmed that a new case was a Filipino reserves in the Israeli Defense Forces were killed in an explosion in Gaza. More details on this report.
The Philippine Embassy in Israel sadly announced the death of a Filipino soldier in the midst of the conflict between Israel and Palestine. The Filipino was identified as Sergeant First Class Reservist Cedric Garin. He was among the 21 Israeli Defense Forces or IDF soldiers who died in an explosion in Gaza. According to Israeli Embassy, the explosion on January 22 was allegedly carried out by the Palestinian-run group Hamas. Garin is said to be the son of 2 Filipinos living in Tel Aviv. His mother is a native of Isabela and his father is from General Santos. The Philippine Embassy in Israel is said to be handling the evacuation of the remains of Sergeant Garin returning back to Israel. Along with her commitment is the support for the grief of his relatives. The 23-year-old member of Israeli Army is a member of 8,208th Battalion of the 261st Brigade. It was April 2021 when Sergeant Garin was recognized by the Southern Command as an outstanding soldier in their unit. He is the 4th Filipino among the death roll amid the ongoing war between Israel and Palestine. Alvin Pelobello for EuroTV News.
The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration PAGASA announced the removal of the names Egay and Goring from the regular set of typhoon names given its history of high casualties and huge damages. PAGASA Administrator Nathaniel Servando said that the decision of the names decommission was due to the extent of damages and casualties brought by these typhoons to the country. A tropical cyclone name is decommissioned if its occurrence has resulted to at least 30 deaths or at least 1 billion pesos worth of damages in infrastructures, agriculture, and houses, as per the official reports of the Office of the Civil Defense. Based on the data of OCD, it can be remembered that Egay has resulted to 30 deaths and more than 15 billion worth of damages, while Goring damaged more than 2.4 million of the country's agriculture and infrastructure and 2 casualties. Meanwhile, replacing these names, Emil and Gavino, will be used by PAGASA starting 2027.
The Vatican Appeal Court is about to sentence a priest regarding its case about sexual assault in relation to the abuse of a minor altar boy that happened in a school of the Vatican City. Dan Villegas report.
A Vatican appeals court has handed down the verdict regarding the case of a priest after he sexually abused a minor in a school in the Vatican City. The priest Gabriele Martinelli will be sentenced to 2.5 years in prison following a sexual assault on the victim, in addition to a fine of 1,000 euros, according to the reasons found by Agence France Presse or AFP in the case. Based on the investigations, his abuse began in 2007 when the victim was only 13 years old and continued until 2012. The priest was responsible for his case from August 9, 2008 to March 19, 2009, where he was proven to be an adult while the said victim was still a minor. The victim's lawyer, LaRose Grow, expressed that her client was grateful that the several years of sufferings from the violence it experienced had ended. This is Dan Villegas for EuroTV News.
Victorious win in the 4th Asian Para Games, Filipino Paralympic medalists have received their cash incentives from the Philippine government. Mia Layagin tells us more.
The 19 Filipino medalists from the 4th Asian Para Games has been granted their cash incentives during its awarding ceremony held this January 24. Led by President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., the cash incentives were awarded to the 19 athletes who brought home 10 gold medals, 4 silver medals, and 5 bronze medals, resulting to the Philippine team placing 9th among the 45 countries who participated in the said competition. President Marcos also expressed his congratulations and applaud to the athletes and the entire Para Games Philippine team who worked hard and brought another honor for the country.
Speaking of heroes and halls in Malacanang, most buildings here sport generic names, and only one, the biggest, honors an individual, Apolinario Mabini. Mabini, who after losing the use of his legs, used his brilliant mind to rally the people to rise up, to fight and chase the freedom that we so well deserve. Ganon din po kayo. You do not let your disability discourage you from doing what you wanted, nor did it deter you from achieving your dreams. To say that para-athletes are of a different breed and made of harder stuff is an understatement.
Moreover, he highlighted that the cash incentives were not a mere monetary, but a symbol of appreciation from the athletes' fellow countrymen.
It is only fitting that apart from the thanks of a grateful nation, we also present you with incentives to help you along. At alam naman natin, napakaraming pangangailangan kapag tayo lumalaban sa pag tayo lumalaban dito sa mga international sports competition. So, as we hand these to you, remember that these are not merely monetary tokens. They are symbols of the love of your countrymen and their admiration for all the sacrifices that you have made for your country and for your countrymen.
Meanwhile, Philippine Paralympic Committee President Michael Barredo also expressed gratitude towards the President, not only for the incentive, but also for the continuous support that the Philippine government shows towards the parasports. In line with this, gold medalists will be receiving a cash assistance amounting to 1 million pesos, 500,000 pesos for silver medalists, while 200,000 pesos for bronze medalists. This is Mia Layagin for EuroTV News.
The Oscars has revealed the list of the nominees for the 96 Oscar Awards that will be held on March. Who are these nominees for this list? Let's find out more on Entertainment Update from Angelica Galvez's report.
Let's step into the world of entertainment with the latest news and updates. The nominees for the 96 Oscars Awards have been released. The show Oppenheimer led the nominations for this, followed by the short Poor Things and the Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oppenheimer got 13 votes for the Best Picture, 11 votes for the Poor Things, and 10 for the Killers of the Flower Moon. Several other shows were also nominated for the Best Picture, such as Barbie, American Fiction, Anatomy of the Fall, The Holdovers, Past Lives, and The Zone of Interest. Oppenheimer director Christopher Nolan was also nominated, saying it was a real thrill to see his show get so many nominations. The show Barbie had 8 nominations. It can be remembered that they were the highest grossing movie last year. The winners of the Golden Oscar statuettes are chosen by approximately 11,000 actors, producers, directors, and film craftspeople from Make-Up, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
And that's the latest showbiz news. I am Angelica Galvez. Back to you, Alvin and Krizza.
And that's the latest news for tonight. You may visit EuroTVPH.com for more news and information. Once again, this is Krizza Lopez.
You can also catch our broadcast live in our social media accounts and via Pinoy Extreme channel. I'm Alvin Pelobello. This is your TV News Thread. Stay safe and have a good night.